Today, we're diving into a really bold educational experiment, the Islamization of knowledge. We're going to explore how one university is trying to blend ancient faith with modern learning, and what that could mean for the future of education. Let's get right into it.
So it all boils down to this one huge question. How do you build a curriculum that gets students ready for a globalized, tech-driven world while staying completely true to the principles of an ancient faith? It's a massive puzzle, and educators all over are trying to figure it out.
All right, first things first, let's get our terms straight. What exactly do we mean by the Islamization of knowledge, and what does it look like to reshape modern learning through this lens?
Okay, so at its core, the Islamization of knowledge, or IOK for short, is all about weaving Islamic principles into every academic field. We're not just talking about theology here, but also science, economics, technology, you name it. The idea is that this creates a more complete, holistic education that's both academically sharp and ethically grounded.
Now, this is a big departure from traditional Islamic education, which, has historically focused mostly on religious texts. The IOK movement is trying to build a bridge, to create a real synthesis between that incredibly rich religious heritage and modern fields like social sciences and economics.
But, this whole idea is not without its critics, not by a long shot. It's actually a pretty hot debate. On one side, you have proponents who see it as a path to moral and spiritual progress. But on the other, critics worry that it could stifle intellectual freedom or be used to push a very specific agenda. Then you have others who are concerned it might even be seen as a kind of cultural imperialism. So, yeah, it's a complicated discussion with strong opinions all around.
Okay, so that's the big idea, but what does it actually look like in the real world? Let's go from theory to practice and take a look inside the International Islamic University, Chittagong in Bangladesh, to see how this mission is playing out.
This is where IIUC comes in. It's a leading university in Bangladesh that has really taken on this challenge head-on. They're not just talking about the Islamization of knowledge, they're actively trying to build their entire institution around the concept.
Now, what's really interesting is that the information we're looking at today comes from a study by researchers at IIUC. They basically put themselves under a microscope, taking a hard look at their own efforts, both the triumphs and the struggles of this really ambitious project.
So what does this actually look like on the ground? Well, at IIUC, they're integrating Islamic values into departments where you might not expect it, like engineering, law, and economics. They're hosting international conferences to keep the conversation moving. They're publishing research to help shape the field. And, this part is key, they're getting their hands dirty, engaging directly with their local community.
So how do they pull it off? How do you actually go about bridging these two massive worlds of faith and modern academia? Let's break down the practical steps they're taking.
It seems they have a four-part strategy. First up is curriculum redesign, which means creating courses that actually blend secular and religious ideas. Then there's a huge focus on faculty development, training teachers how to do this effectively in the classroom. Third is that community engagement we mentioned, launching projects to tackle local problems. And finally, they foster a global dialogue by partnering with other universities to share what works and what doesn't.
And that third step, community engagement, is a huge deal for them. This quote from the study really gets to the heart of it. Education isn't just about what happens in a lecture hall. The university is constantly pushing its students to get out there and use what they've learned to solve actual problems. It's all about putting knowledge into action. But let's be real, an experiment this big is never going to be easy. It's not all smooth sailing. So let's get into the reality check, a frank look at both the incredible opportunities this creates and the serious challenges it faces. The challenges are pretty major. Beyond the obvious things like funding, there's a real lack of people with the right expertise. Think about it. Finding someone who's an expert in both classical Islamic law and modern computer science, that's an incredibly rare combination. But the opportunities are just as powerful. This approach lets the university tackle big societal problems head-on, push critical thinking in new ways, and build a truly unique ethics-first curriculum from the ground up.
So really, this is what it all boils down to. The absolute core challenge is building something that is deeply faithful to tradition while also being nimble and responsive enough for our fast-changing modern world. That's a very, very tricky balancing act.
So where do they go from here? The study wraps up with some pretty clear recommendations, not just for IIUC, but for any place trying to do something like this.
The roadmap they lay out is pretty clear. It all starts with building that rare team of experts who are fluent in both worlds. It means having a curriculum that's solid but also flexible enough to change. It's about going even deeper with those community partnerships, constantly training the faculty, and really putting money behind new research and innovation in this area.
At the end of the day, success isn't about just one thing. It really hangs on getting that mix just right. A blend of deep expertise, a flexible curriculum, and really strong ties to the community you're trying to serve.
And that leaves us with the big question as we watch experiments like the one at IIUC unfold. Can tradition and modernity truly be equal partners in education? For now, it seems like the answer is still being written, not in textbooks, but in classrooms just like these.